Hello, I'd like to talk to you today about something which was announced in the recent budget, but through the nature of things doesn't get included in the Finance Bill, now Finance Act, because it all tends to be done by regulation. What I'm talking about, of course, is the new regime for the ISA, the NISA, or NISA. I'm not sure quite how one would pronounce it, but as I say, basically the Chancellor announced major changes on the 19th of March. They weren't to take effect immediately. They were delayed until the beginning of July, 1st of July 2014, so the new arrangements have now kicked in. What are the new arrangements? Well, firstly, as I say, ISAs have been renamed new ISAs, NISAs, and the important point here is the new arrangements apply to existing accounts as well as ones set up on or after the 1st of July 2014. The most important and significant amendment, however, is a generous increase in the annual investment limit. As you will recall, last year, 13-14, it was standing at a maximum of £11,520, and it has been increased by nearly £3,500 to exactly £15,000. The other significant change is now that you've got complete flexibility as to what you invest your money in. You can either put it into a cash NISA or into a stocks and shares NISA, or any combination that you like. So if, for example, I wanted to put all the £15,000 into a cash NISA, I can now do that. The previous restriction that only 50% of your overall limit last year, that was obviously 5,760, could be saved in cash, no longer applies. Similarly, as I say, I could put my £15,000 into a stocks and shares NISA, or I can have any mix between the two that I like. That, I think, is a welcome new flexibility. Given that we are told, and I'm surprised at quite how high the number is, that some 24 million taxpayers currently hold ISAs, that's not far short of half the entire population of the UK, I would imagine that that number might be going up a little bit as a result of these changes. Another piece of good news is that there was previously a 20% tax charge on any interest that arose in respect of any uninvested cash balance that your client maintained in a stocks and shares ISA. In other words, when you put money into a stocks and shares ISA, it was meant to be invested in stocks and shares and other qualifying investments. If any money was left in cash, obviously it could generate interest, but instead of being tax-free as it normally would be, it was subject to an automatic 20% tax charge in those circumstances. That tax charge has now been abolished. Presumably the reason we used to have that rule was to prevent people circumventing the old limit of 5,760 by having the maximum in a cash ISA and then putting money into a stocks and shares ISA and not, of course, investing the full amount. And to discourage people from doing that, that, as I say, is why that 20% tax charge arose. But of course, given now that you can put your entire annual limit into a cash NISA, then in those circumstances that rule becomes redundant and it has now gone. The final point that I wanted to make, of course, is that savers can only put money into a maximum of one cash NISA and one stocks and shares NISA in any one tax year. If I had already, for example, put money into an existing cash NISA or ISA earlier on this tax year, then in those circumstances I couldn't put my extra entitlement post the 1st of July 2014 into a different cash NISA. I'd have to wait until the 6th of April next year. So that, as I say, a little bit of a lack of flexibility there. But that, as I say, has been the position for some time. Thank you for listening to this talk. My name is Robert Jamieson.